Warning. Gory Storytime is a horror movie review show by a son and his dad who thought that letting his 5-year-old watch scary movies was acceptable. If you are offended by horror or talk about blood and gore by a child, or if you don't want horror movies from the 60s through today spoiled, then there is a remote stuck in your couch cushion next to potato chip crumbs. Use it. And of course, parental discretion is advised.
Why? You didn't use any.
Shut up and start the show.
Welcome to Gory Storytime. I'm your host, Jason.
I'm his co-host and his father, Craig, and this is the show where a father and son review R-rated horror movies, usually R-rated.
Yeah, this one not so much.
I don't know.
PG.
Was it?
Yeah.
But it was also 1972, and like
when PG could do almost anything.
Yeah, I mean, like
16
Jaws
Candles was PG, and that starts with an F word.
Yeah, I mean, parental guidance is what it meant, you know, but it's not the PG as you know it today.
No, now it's PC.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so we've done a Tales from the Crypt that was a spin-off of the television show. We did Demon Night a few years ago, but this is the original Tales from the Crypt movie from 1972, and it's a second in our series of anthology horror. And, you know, it's basically 5 different stories with a wraparound story. And before we get into the, you know, behind the scenes type stuff, we're going to
send it to the trailer.
Yeah, let's see what we're talking about.
From the Crypt. Welcome to the Crypt. You are invited on a guided tour of a world of darkness, where nightmares become reality. Secrets, if you dare. Danger, Death lives in Tales from the Crypt. Who's next? Perhaps you?
And welcome back.
Didn't
that give away all of everything?
I mean, they may have shown something that happens 2 minutes before the credits.
Right. Because it's a trailer,
trailers.
Nobody's going to pay attention.
Yes. But you don't know the context until, I guess. But before we get into our behind-the-scenes information, we have to give a shout-out to our sponsors for this week.
Real sponsors.
Yes, these are real things you can actually buy and do and have and use. And Gory Storytime is brought to you this week by Hateful Greetings, the greeting card company that makes cards for people you can't stand. We have cards for every occasion. Is it your enemy's birthday? We got cards for that. Christmas? Oh yeah, we got those. And what if your least favorite coworker has a birthday? Got it. Here's a sample of one of our Christmas cards. It's Christmas time, a time for joy, for good Gentile girls and good Gentile boys, a time for getting together with family and friends. So it's time for this message that I had to send. When you are alone at night on this blessed Yuletide, give everyone else a gift and try suicide. Wow, isn't that festive? That's Hateful Greetings. Let someone you hate know how you feel today.
How nice. And by Gaines Dog Food. At Gaines, we pride ourselves in using only the freshest meat. Why are you feeding man's best friend grains? We realize now that carbs make you fat. Why would you do that to your pets? Our pledge to you is only meats with balanced vitamins and minerals. That's Gaines Dog Food, a subsidiary of Soylent Industries.
All right. Let's get into some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. You want to go first? You got the top one.
Sure.
All right.
Here's these names again. Stephen King and George A. Romero considered remaking this movie together. Their work together resulted in a completely separate but similar film, Creep Show.
Which was also connected to last week's Tales from the Dark Side. So that shows a lot of connection between these kind of films. Robert Zemeckis has said that this is his favorite movie to watch on Halloween since it was released. He was later the producer of the HBO series entitled Tales from the Crypt, based on the comic book series.
Peter Cushing is said to act as himself in this movie. Cushing's wife had died recently, and he was very depressed, while Cushing's character is a widower who uses a Ouija board to talk to his dead wife.
The role of Mr. Grimsdyke, I'm not making any jokes there, was at first a tiny non-speaking role, but was greatly expanded when Peter Cushing took interest in the role. That's the one I felt the worst for, but I'll get into that later.
Only 2 stories in this film, Reflection of Death and Blind Alleys, originally appeared in EC Comics. Tales from the Crypt and
EC Comics Tales from the Crypt.
Right, okay. And All Through the House appeared in The Vault of Horror and Poetic Justice, and Wish You Were Here both appeared in The Haunt of Fear.
Peter Cushing was originally intended to play Ralph Jason, but after looking at the script, he persuaded the producers he would do more justice to the role of Mr. Grimsdyke.
Peter Cushing wanted to do the movie so much that he took a lower fee.
We'll definitely get into that. Despite being top of the bill and one of the 6 leads, Joan Collins, who played Joanne Clayton, has only 15 lines of dialogue.
Well then, Wishing You Were Here has a scene where Barbara Murray,
I'd say Murray, I don't know. Anyway.
The next word.
Eviscerates
Richard Green with a sword, exposing his intestines. This scene was originally cut in order to get a PG rating, although it was restored in later versions.
Robert Hutton, who played Mr. Baker, and Peter Cushing, who played Mr. Grimsdyke, died only 4 days apart. Hutton on August 7th, 1994, and Cushing August 11th, 1994.
Wow. Director Freddie Francis would go on to direct the season 7 episode of the HBO show of the same name, Tales from the Crypt, called Last Respects. The episode is the same story as the Wish You Were Here segment of this film.
The And All Through the House segment was later remade by Robert Zemeckis himself as the second episode of the HBO series Tales from the Crypt. In that, they actually made the killer Santa look more like the comic book version of the killer Santa. This one, they just had a guy like,
Right.
They actually made him look like the artwork.
That's cool. The script underwent many drafts, most changes involving the Crypt Keeper himself. First draft had him talking to the audience directly. The third draft did not contain a Crypt Keeper, and by the 6th draft, it was decided he would interact with people in the stories.
And I will say, if you're used to the Tales from the Crypt HBO show, this Crypt Keeper
is not the one you
is nothing
see.
like the comics
Or the show.
It's just a guy in a robe that looks kind of like a monk or whatever that's like very calm and very quiet.
And not the high-pitched Muppet that you're used to.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, director Freddie Francis never read the original comics, fearing it would affect his personal interpretations of the stories.
How would he know the stories if he didn't read them?
Well, someone else wrote the script. He directed it.
Oh.
So he knew the stories from the way they were written.
Uh,
Why would you want the source material to affect your movie version?
how dare he? Ralph Richardson filmed his major role in A Day.
This was Robert Hutton's final film before his death on August 7th, 1994, at the age of 74.
Tales from the Crypt, this movie, was shooting around the same time as Horror on Snape Island at Shepperton Studios.
Yeah.
Both films borrowed some of the sets to use in each film. The cave set from this was also used by Horror on Snape Island. Okay.
Robin Phillips was only cast as James because the original choice, Ralph Bates, was not free.
Oh, okay. Hedger Wallace, Peter Fraser, Frank Forsyth, Clifford Earle, and Dan Caulfield are all dubbed by Robert Righty.
Yeah. In other words, that one guy did all of the voices.
Voice acting?
Yeah. For the live action film.
Right.
Well, they did that in Star Wars. The guy in the suit was not James Earl Jones.
Oh no.
And when they took the helmet off, it was not James Earl Jones. Spoiler alert for, Return of the Jedi.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, in the crypt scenes, Elliot wears a red flower pinned on his jacket over his heart. This is a sly foreshadowing of his fate, having his heart ripped out by an undead Grimsdyke.
Mm-hmm.
See, they even threw a zombie in for you.
Right. Mm-hmm. Peter Duffel passed on the chance to direct this picture.
Now,
That's all I have.
Here's the real question. Who is Peter Duffel?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
He's someone that someone knew, I guess.
At the time.
At the end of the film, there's a plot twist. Spoiler!
Yeah.
The Crypt Keeper was not warning the strangers of what would happen, but what had happened. Clues to this twist can be seen in between the segments, like Joan Collins wearing a brooch that her husband gave her for Christmas just before she murdered him in the first segment, and all through the house. So they all have something that kind of gives away that.
Okay.
Now, Rotten Tomatoes, for those who don't know, what Rotten Tomatoes do is they basically take all the well-known reviewers and they combine their ratings, positive and negative, and then they give a percentage of positive reviews. That's where they get their number from. It's a conglomeration of the majority of real film reviewers out there. They don't take our
Which,
advice.
before we actually give the number, I thought it was funny that there were only 16 reviews in.
It was
14 were positive, 2 were
realize
negative,
that a lot of the people that they work with probably haven't reviewed a movie from 1972 that's not well known.
Right.
And not that I would suggest watching movies without, paying the rights, but instead of renting this on demand, you can find it on YouTube from beginning to end in English, not subtitled or any of that stuff like we've come across
Yes,
in the past.
dubbed apparently, but
Dubbed by the studio.
right.
But anyway, they also have a people score where people can go on RottenTomatoes.com and they
vote
can
themselves.
vote positive or negative. And the people, we'll give the
Critics have it at a whopping 88%.
which is certified fresh and very well received, which is funny because horror movies, like we've discussed before, don't usually get a very high rating.
Especially ones like this.
Same with
actually.
comedies. It's either hit or miss when it comes to it, unless it's a very specific thing, like
Like another Kevin Hart movie.
I was gonna say the Jordan Peele one,
Oh,
Get Out.
that was a really good one.
It
though.
was, but because there was some social justice kind of storyline in there, it got rated way higher than it normally would have if it was just a horror movie.
Right.
But if you fit in with the politics of the reviewer, it tends to get rated higher.
Right. I don't remember what it was.
But
There
the
was this new
people-
horror movie that just recently came out, and it's at 100% currently.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called, but
Is it the one where they have to be quiet?
yeah.
Quiet Place?
No.
No.
That's
What's it
at like
called?
39. I forget what it's called. I'm gonna have to
don't
look it up. But
Anyway,
Yeah.
but the people have it at only 69%, which is still considered fresh, I believe. I think 68 is the line.
65 or 66 is the line.
I don't know, but it's barely fresh. Not quite as high as the critics, but I think more people vote. And
the
it is, but some people can't watch a movie like I try to tell you we should do as, okay, this was 1972, understand
It's not gonna
special
have great special
effects
effects. It's not gonna
and
have
the budget.
great acting.
There's movies
It's okay, but
I'm not saying this in particular. I'm saying in 1972 they had movies with great acting.
right.
So
But you can't assume that it's going to.
right, but what I'm saying is it's more about the budget constraints and
Yeah.
the special effects.
Right.
And with horror movies, special effects are a pretty big part.
thing.
Anyway, the people have it at 69%.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, what was your favorite scene in this movie?
My favorite scene, spoiler alert for the end of one of the stories, was an old guy was getting tormented by this rich guy. The rich guy got his dogs taken away.
I hated that
I
guy.
really, really hated everything about that story because I,
hated
felt
that
so
man.
bad.
I wanted to.
I felt so bad for the old guy who had everything going against him. His wife was dead. He was watching after kids and no longer could. The dogs all got taken away, and then
lost his job.
and then he turned into a zombie and ripped the guy's heart out. That is my favorite part.
He was driven to suicide by a whole bunch of things.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's a connection
I have no
to
idea.
the commercial.
Nah,
with the driven to
Totally no.
It's weird.
It's a real thing.
Yes, those commercials are real. For the drinking game. Do. Anyway,
The Windex isn't here.
yeah. My favorite scene, boy, is probably my favorite part is probably the look on the little girl's face with how happy she was to let her mom know that she had allowed Santa in the house, because that was pure joy. Like, that little girl
Believed it was Santa.
almost wasn't acting. Like, it seems like at her age she was like, I get to bring Santa out. Like, she looked like she was truly joyous. So if she was acting, good job, little kid, you know.
And if she wasn't, good job.
Because what
cast.
was she, like 3, 4? Couldn't have been much
She was
older.
maybe 5 or
Like,
6, but
I wouldn't say that old.
I wouldn't say 6, but she was 4 or 5 maybe.
I don't know, but she was wicked young, and she looked absolutely joyous to tell her mom, Santa was outside, I let him in, which will make more sense if you watch this movie.
Right.
Or have seen that episode of Tales from the Crypt, directed by Robert Zemeckis, who
Or
loves
read
this
that
movie.
story in the comics.
True. What was your
Least favorite.
least favorite? Yeah.
Is basically the whole story of their take on the monkey's paw.
Why?
Because it's supposed to they're like dead, right? Spoiler alert, but you can pick that up from watching the movie at all. They're dead, and they're there because of something that they did. Then you see the story, and the guy did nothing. He died.
But see, they didn't give away that they were dead, because if you remember, every single person seemed confused why they were there. Their memories stopped before the incident, and the crypt keeper told them this was a warning. So they were under the impression this was something that was going to happen. So they thought that this was a warning to prevent
But
it.
I could tell from the beginning
Yeah, well-
that they were all dead.
Traditionally in these kind of movies, it ends up with, Tales from the Hood, same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you these stories, but you're already in hell. And, you know,
Right.
they do that a lot.
But I really didn't like their take on that story because the explanation they were trying to give, there wasn't one. Because it was her that should have been there then.
Right. But in the comics, there is no outside of the story portion. You see, it
Right.
would end with him in all that pain from her trying to
Forever.
end him. Right. and then it would be the end, and then it would have made more sense. It's the fact that they tried to fit it into the narrative
of an anthology.
Yeah, right. And you got to realize they obviously had a hard time with it.
If they had just done an episode of it.
Yeah, but this wasn't that.
Right. And I didn't like that. It was them trying to shoehorn it into a movie that I didn't like.
You didn't like that they shoehorned it in, or you didn't like the movie?
I liked the movie.
Okay.
I didn't like that they tried to fit that one.
Well, it's just
in.
It didn't work the way they put it in the wraparound. They should have had it be her.
That right.
But anyway, that'll make more sense if you watch the movie. My least favorite part, I have to be honest, was probably see, and I would want to say the guy that was torturing the old guy, but it was probably the story about the blind people, because it was okay, but out of all the stories, it was the least effective.
Right.
I guess the twist you could see coming a mile away. As he's being starved, and so is the dog right next to him. Like, you knew what was going to happen when cryptically the blind guy was like, "Oh, feed my dog," and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I will soon enough." It's like, okay, gee, I wonder what that means.
Right.
You're starving him and the dog. What could possibly happen to feed the dog? So I guess because there was no real twist to that story, because I saw it coming a mile away, and it just, I don't know. There's a lot more comeuppance in some of the other ones, you know? And that's what Tales from the Crypt always really was, is whoever, for the most part, whoever was doing something really messed up would be the one that...
coming?
Yeah, it was karma.
Right.
Like, it was horror, but the horrible things happened to horrible people, and you kind of went,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they're moral tales. They really
Like, the
are.
show really makes you feel like
So
a bad
it does
person
fit where
when
they
you
ended
watch
up
it
being
and feel
at the end
good
of the
about
movie.
that.
It does fit because the whole thing is a morality play.
We gotta wrap it up.
Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, what would I rate it? I'd probably give it a 9 for an anthology.
Really?
Yeah.
So better than last week's Tales from the
Yeah.
Dark Side.
But, like, this one I didn't keep repeatedly falling asleep to. I fell asleep
Yeah,
once.
But that wasn't because the movie wasn't good from last week. It was because
A lot of it couldn't...
we started watching it late at
hold
night.
my attention a lot.
But I don't know. I'd probably give it a 7, a little lower than you do, but it's still good. I mean, anything for me over a 6 is, you know, if you like horror movies, definitely watch this.
Oh, yeah.
So quickly, if you have any questions or comments about the show,
We have
please
a sidebar that should pop up so we can
please
know.
hit us
okay,
up.
there it is.
Okay, we'll start there.
Yeah.
Fact TV, you can watch the show on Fact TV Channel 8, Fridays at, Thursdays at 8:30, and
Fridays at
7. Email us at gorystorytime@yahoo.com.
Like
Questions,
us on Facebook.
Yep.
Like Fact TV on Facebook. But I heard we're going live right now, so you did.
Yeah, but for people watching it on the show.
Right.
Or like on the Channel 8.
Right.
It's also on other times, but
Yeah.
those are the two.
Check out their website, fact8.com.
Yes.
Watch all of our, not all of, but a lot of our back episodes.
Yep. You can watch a lot of content that
shows.
we've made on my YouTube channel. Just type in Juggalo Jakes.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of stuff on there.
Looked up Fact TV, or Falls Area Connection.
Falls Area Community Television.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Also, you can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Craig Jakes, all one word, all lowercase.
And I'm at Jason T. Jakes, capital J, capital T, capital J.
And, I mean, that's pretty much it, right, for this week? So,
Yeah. So until next time, I'm your host, Jason.
I'm his co-host and his father, Craig.
And sweet dreams.